great presentation. I really enjoy your ambition and, you know, the stations of the artist in a very religious way, the way that you've constructed it. And I think it's fair to say, well, I haven't seen much of it, but you've stuck with something and sort of really forced it into something which is quite a complete architecture. It's very dictatorial. Would you agree with that? Like, it's very dictating.
Yeah, it's taking the art
like a machine.
Yeah, from the art gallery to this point.
Okay.
So.
And it's underground for what reason? Or the process, why?
Well, it's referencing our coal industry. So what we're doing is basically we're taking stuff from underneath the ground, digging it up as quickly as we can, and selling it off to whoever overseas wants to buy. Okay. So and a lot of that sort of referenced a lot of the design of it. So the idea of the foreign investment and yeah.
Sure. And art is selected for what reason? So it references coal.
Yeah. Well, in Newcastle there's no cultural policy, so it's something that's sort of up for grabs, you know. And why I talked about the government was that you know, they're sometimes very dubious the way they deal with things. And the way I loaded up at the front of the thing, talking about how this creative industry is, you know, something that's on the rise. Well, it's scary to say, but it's a very Newcastle thing where they'll be like, okay, we can just export this. Let's just export it, get our money, you know. And also, when I started this process, looking at sort of curatorial spaces, so looking at art galleries and everything like that, and the neoliberalism that's sort of evident in those spaces, it sort of opens itself up where they're having to prostitute themselves in several ways to actually make ends meet because there's not the stable public funding coming through. So it sort of creates this little gap where you go, well, this could actually be quite feasible, which is scary to say, but this could actually happen. And then there's other sort of references that you look at, like things like Barangaroo, where that whole project has been set up where they're saying, all we're going to do is we're going to bring people in, cocoon them, get money out of them, and send them on their way. So it's looking at things, there's a whole range of things that you can look at, and which I've looked at, and it sort of leads to this point where you go, well, it's actually strangely realistic.
Yeah. That's probably the one station which is left a little bit hanging, isn't it? That when he's stepping out there and he's standing on his own. The sixth station is perhaps to the harbour, isn't it? Or it's to the boat, or it's to the
that's why the helicopter's in there. Sure. So we've got this dual exporting nature where the coal ships are still going out and the helicopter's got the billionaire pilot. So.
Great. Brit. Or Richard?
I can understand. I mean, it is happening, as you mentioned, what is happening in the cities and around the countryside is happening, and it's very difficult to know as an architect how you can contribute to clarify your position and to fight against these things. It's really difficult. And many architects therefore turn to making statements through art or through changing what they do in order to be able to speak more directly and politically, because in a way architecture is very difficult. It's kind of mute, and so you actually have to do things to it to be able to make it speak, because it can only really speak evocatively about the things that it does best that no one else does, like shelter and cocooning and all of that. But one of the things that you want to do is you want to speak out trying to be creative about how you speak out about these things and I could imagine it happening with the Gina Reinhardt Centre for Art. I mean, why not? I mean, you know, I can. But you probably wouldn't take the commission. So this is really a protest, isn't it, in the end, in a way as well. So then we have to look in, well, from my position, I have to look into thinking, well, you are obviously like making places and imagining places that you know how you could shape places, how you might enter a place, how you might move from place to place. And that has a long history of the architectural promenade, quite independently of the protest. There is this art of making space. And obviously you have some interest in that and how you begin a journey, what are the occasions that you come to along the way, like Stations of the Cross or whatever, and then how you come to a finale. We don't see much about this end in the sculptural piece, but I can imagine it would be as well thought about as all the other elements of it. So for me, it's a demonstration of what you're capable of. It's not architecture to me, but it shows that you're capable of it, and it is a way that you can come out and make a sculptural protest against what is happening, which we're all outraged by. So I have great empathy with what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Britt mentioned this, and how does the whole thing start?
The whole thing start.
Yeah, how does
It starts in the art gallery.
No. Emotionally, physically, you know, like how does someone end up starting being an artist that walks down into these chambers?
The artists will be attracted to this because they're basically being guaranteed resources and capital to continue their artistic career. And in Newcastle, the art gallery redevelopments keep falling over. As I said, there's no cultural policy. So there is sort of this gap, and this is where these people sort of fall into and go through this process.
So the artist applies to the art gallery?
The artist applies at the art gallery, is selected by the art gallery, and then they depart from the art gallery.
I think you had an image of where they started.
Yeah, it's
It's a bit like buying a greyhound.
Or a thoroughbred. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's just
I mean-
a story.
Oh, it's much worse than that.
Yeah, it's much worse. It is much worse than.
There's a sort of strange parallel with slavery.
Well, that's it. That's
That's
right.
what it
You know,
is.
and like if you think of slaves being caught and put into detention and held in a captive, things like, I mean, there's a very interesting parallel that is quite confronting in terms of humanity.
I've got scapegoat or on the altar, like being up for slaughter.
Well, isn't it like a gladiator? In
Or a
Roman times as
gladiator.
well, being selected and groomed and fed and, you know, such that you can go in and be chopped up potentially.
Yeah, or the land they'd do well fed and then taken.
Except I suppose the point of difference is that the artists choose to engage in this.
Yes, but they're brainwashed.
Yeah, but they're not. But
that's a
it's
cultural
not. It's not a real thing,
Yeah,
though,
that's
is
a
it?
cultural.
But just
Is-
to carry
No.
on from...
No. But I'm
Yeah, no.
But it's a parody of a situation.
it's taking the current environment and sort of
Yeah.
creating a project.
Yeah. So it's architecture as parody. It's not. It's and you're using, which I think is
But
very
the process
valid.
is,
You're using architecture to portray that system
Yeah.
or that
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
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 So it's more a social state. I tend to follow on from Britt, where I think that you've represented it exactly as you felt it. That is, as 5 almost independent places. No, I'm not sure how it connects like a bit of poetry does, for instance. And so I struggle a little bit with the totality of it, you know, not that room or that room or that room or that room or that room. I mean, I can see all of those. But for instance, why wouldn't the artist be lowered in from a helicopter? You know, I haven't seen a strong enough, for me personally, a strong enough argument for all these places. I mean, I could put a different place there entirely and still argue. That's why I asked the question, you know, how does it start? Because quite often the way something starts is almost preempting the way it finishes as well. You know, for instance, the gladiator being groomed. They're not being groomed to be strong and great swordsmen and that sort of thing to cut hair. They're being groomed like that to fight. You know? So, I
To
don't know.
fight for their lives.
Yeah. So it's just a question, you know, and I think sometimes it's a little bit easy to make up a poem with a lot of different readings, not all the same. But you know, I think it's provocative and interesting, and you know, I don't think you'd find that the stainless steel thing would reflect that well, but it may.
Have you been to Topkapi Palace in Istanbul?
No.
Well, in the Topkapi Palace, there is a great sculpture there which was commissioned by the Sultan of the time, a man of incredible power, ultimate power, and he commissioned the greatest artist in the city to make a fountain for him. And the artist came back with this, and the fountain is there in the palace for you to see, and it is made of marble, and it is 5 great bowls of marble, the bottom one being the biggest, and 5 of them, one within the other, to the top. And it is filled with water from the top, and all the bowls are filled, and as one drop of water comes in the top, another drop of water comes in the next, to the next, to the next, and the next. And it's incredibly beautiful. And the artist presented this to this man of ultimate power, and the man of ultimate power said to him, "It's incredibly beautiful. Can you make another one?" And he said, "Sire," he said, "I can make many." And the man of ultimate power said, "Out with his eyes." True story. Right? So what you're doing is you are having money by the voice and the freedom of the artist, right? Which is happening all over this country. And so I find the notion of your scheme incredibly powerful, right? And the artist is up for sale and is spirited away and is silenced. Interesting.
That's a bit of poetry.
Tom?
Look, hey, here's another project that you struggled with. Seems to be a consistent theme, right? The game is given away at the beginning when you use the kind of revolutionary Russian constructivist graphics. It's posited as a revolutionary project, and I think about the Russian constructivists who used architecture and design as revolutionary tools of communication. And I would argue that if the visionary proposition is not one of architecture's roles about the world and how we act in it, then I think we're giving up something if we don't accept that as one of the things that architects can do. We don't exist simply in service to capital, or simply in service to the environment, or simply in service to any of those things. We exist partly in service to, in your case, something you see going on societally in Newcastle, and here is another scheme, as Britt said, you could start building it tomorrow, because the contextual framework which makes this possible is already there, it's already in place.
That's what's so shocking.
That's what's so shocking about it, and so we're so used to students saying this will change the world. What you're saying with your project is this is the world, and that's the bit that I find immensely powerful.
I don't like it.
That's fine, and so I think that
that's what he's saying.
part of
this is the world, and I don't like it. Is what his scheme is saying. He's saying to us.
And so part of the discomfort we have with it is that we recognise how close we are to that, and so to me it's been a great trajectory to see it come to this, to come to, and the fact that you can deliver this presentation that in fact provokes those kinds of sentiments in us. Fantastic.
Great. Thank you.